In just a few hours, the Republican National Convention kicks off, and right now, leaders and delegates are meeting to renominate President Trump. Joining us now is our political expert, political analyst, Dr. Susan MacManus, to break down what this week is going to look like. Dr. MacManus, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, always.
Okay, so what do we think this convention is going to look like? We just saw the DNC. How is the RNC going to be different or the same?
I think that's a really curious question. Is the production going to look any different? Because one was supposedly done by Hollywood, this supposedly by the apprentice celebrity apprentice producer. The production side of it, I think, will be really interesting to see how much difference there's going to be. We can for sure expect we're going to see a lot of everyday people talking in their own words about what Trump has done that's made their lives better in a variety of policy arenas.
And now one big thing we've been talking about is the schedule this week. President Trump is supposed to appear every night, and that's very different than what we saw from Joe Biden last week. Is this playing into a certain strategy? What do you think their goal is of having President Trump every night?
I think they're trying to create an imagery of that he's out there, whereas Biden has sort of been in his home. The idea that he's out there in person, that's the strategy, I believe.
And that's definitely one that President Trump keeps using against Joe Biden at news conferences and whatnot as well. So happening today, let's talk about the events that we're going to see taking place today. Actually, some that have been taking place all morning, really.
This morning has been the roll call, and that's been very traditional. But what is so interesting is the fact that there are actually 350 some delegates from all the states and territories actually in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the roll call is taking place. Our governor is probably going to give the opening for Florida's votes cast for, obviously, President Trump. But the significance of them meeting in person in Charlotte and the president in person coming there this evening is that they're recognizing that Charlotte worked hard preparing for the convention, and then COVID hit in and all sorts of things came along. But in contrast to, as they'll point out, to Vice President Biden, he had no appearance, nor was there any appearance of anything in Milwaukee. And that is the contrast again that the Trump administration and the campaign will make is, look, you realize Charlotte did a lot, held a live event there, the roll call vote, people in Charlotte made some money from the delegates, all of those things that never happened in Milwaukee.
It's definitely going to be one of the key differences this week. What are some other big speakers that we can look forward to hearing from? Who are they this week?
We're going to see a big presence of Florida, both from elected officials currently. Jeanette Nunez gets a prime speaking spot at the convention on Tuesday evening. Pam Bondi. You have the father of one of the victims of the Parkland shooting will be speaking, and probably a couple other people, just everyday people. But it signifies the greater presence of Floridians at this convention. Simply reflects the fact that if there's one state that Trump cannot lose to win re-election, it's Florida.
And that was something you had brought up last week with the Democratic National Convention, the kind of the fact that Florida was not as big of a representation as you expected.
Right. Again, you're going to see a lot of contrasts. And from the beginning of the discussion about this convention, meaning after the DNC, immediately the Republican line is this is going to be much more uplifting, much more engaging than last week, because obviously they've already come up with a sort of clever thing, which was last week was about darkness, this week's about greatness. So this is normal. The party whose convention is second always benefits from the one who went first, because in a way it allows them to better contrast their views and sort of leave that in the people's minds, sort of the last word, even though the next turn will be debates and we'll start all this all over again. But contrasting yourself or your party with the other is critical for both conventions. The Democrats did it with the Republicans. Now it's the Republican turn to contrast themselves and their policies and their hopes for a future America with the Democrats.
It'll be a very interesting week for sure. Dr. MacManus, we appreciate your insight, and we look forward to hearing from you all week about what happens at the Republican National Convention. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.